So you're looking to post an iceberg chart, but you want to make sure it's actually the best it can be? Well, you're in luck. Today, we're gonna dive into all the do's and don'ts of creating a top-tier iceberg with some great advice straight from the Iceberg Threads community. Whether you're just starting out or are a seasoned iceberg charts veteran, we've got you covered. Let's get right into it. Before you even start building your iceberg, you need a solid original topic for your deep dive. If you're stuck, the ideas board over at icebergthreads.com is a great place to start. It's packed with suggestions to get the creative juices flowing. That said, feel free to follow your own curiosity wherever it leads. The secret to a great iceberg is choosing a topic you're actually obsessed with. Since the best icebergs thrive on obscure, hidden facts, your passion for the research will really show in the final product. Just a heads up, some topics are judged a bit more strictly by the community, but more on that later. Now that you have a great topic for an iceberg chart, the most important thing is to really do your research. I mean it, you have to dig deep here. A great iceberg lives or dies by the quality of the information you find. You don't want to just skim the surface and mention stuff everyone knows about. You have to find hidden details and obscure facts that most people have never even heard of to really stand out. Taking the extra time to verify your facts makes your iceberg feel much more authentic and gives your audience a reason to actually keep scrolling to the bottom. Plus, if it's a topic you don't know much about, then it can be a fun experience learning something new. Once you've gathered all your information, you need to decide where everything goes. There is definitely a golden rule here that actually isn't always being followed, even by the most popular icebergs, but it's crucial for making an iceberg chart faithful to its core principles. And that rule is that your ranking should be based purely on how obscure a topic is, never on how disturbing or creepy it is. A lot of people make the mistake of putting a scary entry at the bottom just because it's dark, disturbing, or good clickbait material. But if everyone already knows about it, it actually belongs near the top. You want your audience to feel like they're descending into the unknown, so keep the common knowledge at the peak and save the truly hard to find facts for the very bottom. Next, you need to actually build the skeleton of your iceberg, which is all about balancing your layers and entries. The best way to do this is to let your research dictate the shape of the iceberg. Don't feel like you have to force a specific number of layers. If you only have a handful of facts, don't try to stretch them across 10 layers, for example. That will lead to empty layer syndrome, which will make any background and sidebar images look too small, making the iceberg feel unfinished. On the flip side, try not to overstuff a single level with hundreds of different entries while leaving others nearly empty. It should feel like a steady, even descent. If you notice one layer is getting way too crowded, that's usually a sign you should split it into more than one. It will make your images look much prettier and the iceberg will be more enjoyable overall for your audience. Now that you have everything planned out, you need to write your entries in a way that keeps the iceberg chart visually coherent. One of the biggest mistakes is letting your entries get uselessly long. If an entry is a whole paragraph, it's going to clutter up the iceberg and turn people off. Keep them short and sweet. Same goes for descriptions. If they are too long, they will tire your audience out and deter them from reading the rest of the iceberg. Also, keep an eye out for repeating entries or using too many slashes between words. It can look a bit messy. You also want to avoid joke entries unless they really fit the vibe, otherwise they just distract from the actual research, especially if it's an iceberg about a serious topic. Just keep it clean, check your spelling, and make sure every entry actually belongs in its layer. Now that the entries are looking nice and clean, let's talk about how you label the whole project. It's really tempting to throw words like ultimate or colossal into the title to tempt people into viewing your iceberg, but you should probably save such grandiose labels for when you truly have hundreds of entries. If your iceberg only has 4 or 5 layers, calling it the absolute definitive whatever can feel a bit like clickbait to the community, and this is not YouTube. You also want to be careful with how you handle sensitive or disturbing topics. Avoid the childhood trauma cliché unless you have something really new to say. And if you're including NSFW or heavy entries, make sure they're handled with maturity and respect to the topic. While the iceberg should always be labeled as NSFW on the Iceberg thread site, and no links to unsafe content should be posted ever. This is one of the main reasons many icebergs get rejected from the site at first. The goal here is to be informative and mysterious, not just edgy for the sake of it. Setting the right tone in your title and categories from the start tells your audience that you've actually put some thought into the subject, not just adding a bunch of shock slop to appear cool. This isn't 4chan. 2 girls 1 cup is old news by now, and you won't look awesome or edgy for adding it, but a desperate attention seeker. The last thing you need to think about is the visual aspect of your iceberg. Even the best research can get ignored if the iceberg is hard to read or just plain boring to look at. A big mistake is using a background that's so busy and distracting that nobody can see the text. Stick to a clean, classic iceberg image that gets darker as you go down. To make it even better, you can use coloring for your categories or markers to help people stay organized as they read. Make sure you use easily readable colors for them though, nothing too dark or too bright. And don't forget about the thumbnail. Since your iceberg will appear on the homepage, adding a related, high-quality thumbnail is what's going to make people actually want to click on it. Oh, and one tiny but huge detail. Check your spelling. I've already mentioned this before, but really, nothing ruins the vibe faster than a bunch of typos in your deepest layers. Finally, once you've got everything looking just the way you want it, it's time to think about how you actually release it. A pro tip is to keep your iceberg private or unlisted until you feel like it's truly ready enough. You can label your iceberg as work in progress, but it's much better to take an extra day or two to double check your facts than to put out something that feels half finished. Even after you publish your iceberg, remember that it can still be a living project. Don't be afraid to update it frequently if you find new, even deeper information or if the community points out something you missed. Keeping it fresh not only makes the iceberg better, but also shows you're still engaged with the topic. Just make sure you follow the rules and community guidelines and you're good to go. And that's really all there is to it. Building a great iceberg chart can definitely be a lot of work, but when you put in the research and take the time to organize it right, the results are always worth it. Just remember to stay invested, keep your layers balanced, and always prioritize the deep, obscure knowledge that makes the iceberg community so much fun to begin with. I can't wait to see what kind of rabbit holes you end up creating. I'd like to thank Lidenscab, InHeXT, The Clocky One, and ThisIDK for their awesome suggestions for this video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and support the Iceberg Threads project on Patreon to keep our community evolving. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.